if you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
On Horse Chats today, we welcome back Christoph Hess. Now, Christoph is going to talk to us about collection. And if you're a regular listener, you'll know that Christoph talked about the scale of training. And even before then, he talked about straightness from the scale of training. So we're just going a little bit more depth today, talking about collection and one or two other questions. So, Christoph, just welcome back. And how are you today?
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Glenys. I'm very much looking forward having a new podcast with you. I'm fine, thank you very much indeed. But I think many of the Australian people know that we have a very, very bad weather in Germany for some days and lots of rain. I would say 1 week ago, so much rain that we have in some regions, and these regions are probably 100 miles away from the place where I am living in Germany. They have a very, very, very bad situation there. And we hope that we can manage it, and we spend money and we spend food for their horses. And it's really, really a nightmare. And I'm sure many of the Australian guys could watch it in the TV news. And that's a situation which I had seen quite often in Queensland, in Brisbane, when you had this much rain. This is in Germany first time that we have it, and we have a big discussion in Germany now about the climate change, which is a discussion at least until 20 years, but now we see it in our own country, how it is when the climate is changing. In the old days we saw it in different countries in the world in the news, but now we have it really in the reality in Germany. And this is, maybe it's a wake-up call for our country. Maybe it's a wake-up call for the people itself. No?
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how the wider, we come to the show and we talk about horses and things like collection, straightness, scale of training, but the wider view and bringing, the rest of the world into it, and the whole conversation about climate change and how it affects horses. Christoph, today we're talking about collection, but I do have another question for you, and it's just something that was brought up. And I know that we used to have people, female riders, taking their eyes off the judge, and male riders, this is just saluting in the dressage. So, come down the centre line, halt, salute. Females would, as they saluted, take their eyes off the judge, and male riders generally tended not to. And, maybe not a rule, maybe just etiquette, but this has changed a lot internationally. Can you just have a quick comment about that, and maybe how you've seen salutes even change?
Yeah, although I think in the old days when we had not the helmets, the men had to put up their bowler hats and something like this, and the female didn't do it. And now we have helmets for all of them, and this is great. That's good. I know that I had a situation. It was 2002, first time in Adelaide, when I was judging in the old days 4-star, now we would say 5-star Adelaide eventing competition. It was the first time because the insurance company said everybody has to ride with a helmet. It was the first time in an international competition that I saw it, and now it's 19 years later, and everybody has to wear the helmets. And therefore, it's so that you have to bring your one hand from the rein, and this is similar for men and women. And to be honest, I didn't hear it before that there is a difference in which direction the eyes are of the rider. I think, from my point of view, my personal point of view, I think it's very kind when the rider is looking into the eyes of the judge, and I think from the judge's point of view, it's very important that the judge is looking into the judge at sea. The president of the ground jury is looking into the eyes of the riders when they are saluting. This is, for me, should be part of the education. But to be honest, I never had heard about it, that this is kind of a rule or should be in the future kind of a rule. In the international sport, I never had heard something about it. And I don't know how national federations are organizing a kind of rule or so. But I think it's part of the education that there is a positive eye contact between judge and rider and judge. And that's, for me, there should be no difference between male and female.
If someone came down the centre line and, came down, halted, saluted, looked you, and is looking at you, salutes or lowers their head, lowers their hand, as against someone who lowered their eyes and took their eyes off you, would you think that maybe that person doesn't have the confidence or doesn't know, does that give you a different impression?
Yeah, absolutely. Although I love to give clinics and seminars for judges, riders and trainers together. And this is something what I'm always explaining, that the body language is very important. And the body language of the horse is very important. And the body language of the rider is important. And I know that many people are watching, other judges are watching, and trainers as well, or the coaches are watching very carefully to the body language of the horse. But I think it's very important for us when we are judging or when we are training and coaching, that we are watching the body language of the rider as well. And part of the body language of the rider is it's a face. And you have to watch to get for me, when I'm judging, I'm always trying to get a contact to the rider, to get a feeling for the feeling of the rider. Is he supple himself or herself? Is she tense or is he tense? Is she in a good concentration or is he not in a good concentration? Is she, what I like very much, smiling with her face into herself, also not laughing but smiling? Is she or he looking very confident? Yes, confident, and has positive intention. Things like this. This is for me very, very important. Therefore, I look very carefully to the body language, because the body language is very much a mirror of the way of riding. The more relaxed the rider is, the more supple, the more sensitive the rider is, and the better his way of giving the aids is. So therefore, I'm happy seeing a rider who is not tense, because the rider who is tense and maybe a little bit aggressive in the saddle is often a rider who is working against the horse and not with the horse. And the rider who is relaxed himself, herself, is much more, or often much more, in harmony with with the horse. Sorry. And this is for me the highest goal. So therefore, I'm watching carefully into the eye of the rider to get a feeling for the whole body. Maybe I have to explain it in another way. The face and the eyes are a very important part of the whole process of the body language of the rider. And the body language of the rider is very, very important for the way of riding with the goal, harmony.
Okay, and I think, you talk about harmony and working with the horse and not against the horse. That's just not dressage. That's, every discipline, or every time we handle a horse, every time we do it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Now, just coming back to the collection, if I had a little bit of knowledge of horses but hadn't heard the term collection, or I was just a bit confused, and said to you, what is collection? Can you explain to me, just briefly, if you're talking about collection, what is collection?
Yeah, I would say collection is the way of riding when you want to ride, to compete on a higher level. A rider who is just hacking outside doesn't need collection, or to be honest, doesn't need collection on a higher level. A little bit collection everywhere it needs, because collection is, I would explain it, is in the way that that's a little bit positive tension, which a horse needs. And because without positive tension, the horse is nearly falling over his own legs. So therefore, collection is something into the direction of getting a wonderful or a very, very good balance, body balance. And therefore, it is necessary that all horses have a little bit a level of collection when they are ridden and trained by the rider. And the higher the level of the riders is, the higher the level of collection has to be. And when we are looking from today's point of view into the direction of Tokyo, then we know that especially the dressage horses have a very, very high level of collection to be able to carry a lot of weight, much more than young horses, other horses who are a little bit older, with the hind legs, so that they start to find a new balance system, more uphill tendency, more carrying the weight with the hind legs, more sitting with the hind legs to have more energy from behind. And then at the end of the day, they get a new feeling of balance. They get a new way of swinging over the back through the whole body. And the impression of the gaits are more positive, more expressive, more in the positive way, spectacular in a positive way, not negative. We have spectacular situations often when the horses are not collected, but when they are properly collected on the basic of suppleness and not of tension, and positive suppleness and not of negative tension. When we have this, then we have a beautiful horse, a beautiful swinging horse, a horse which is very, very sensitive to the rider's aids, and the rider, and more sensitive than a not collected horse. And the rider has, at the end of the day, the feeling to swing more into the horse, is sitting more deep into the horse, deep into the horse's movement, and has the feeling that he and she are just using his pelvis, and everything is in a smooth way of swinging, has a nice way of going forward, not hurried, but active, without running, I would say.
Okay. Now, just thinking about, people might say, oh, I know about collection, that's when they tuck their nose in. So, you've already listened to part of the conversation, you know that it's not just tucking the horse's nose in. Now, last time we talked about the training scale to train a horse. Can you just, within that training scale, the steps within the training scale, talk about where collection is in that scale of training?
Yeah, we have to realize that the very, very last point of the training scale is collection. And this is for me very important. And therefore, I had suggested that we talk about collection today in our podcast, because all the other criteria which we have in the scale of training have to be fulfilled. When there is a small detail not okay, then you will never get a good, harmonious collection. So therefore, we have to realize that we have 5 steps to do before. And the 5 steps, we have to realize that we have to do it in a precise way, so that we always realize that we have to start with the horse, and this is step number 1, in a good rhythm and regularity, in the correct tempo. This is the very first way we have to ride our horse. When we are hacking, when we are show jumping and doing the work on the flat, we have to to ride the 3 gates, walk, trot, canter, in a clear 4-beat, 2-beat, 3-beat rhythm. Walk 4, trot 2, and canter 3-beat rhythm. And in the right tempo, not fast, not slow. Otherwise, the horse, and this is very important when we are talking about the scale of training, that the horses will find their balance under the saddle. And therefore, it's important to do it in a good rhythm. Second thing has to be in a good way fulfilled is the suppleness. A horse which is full of negative tension. In the beginning of our conversation, I said we need positive tension for collection, but not negative tension. And this is for me very important. Negative tension means that the horse is mentally not with the rider, mentally against the rider. And when we have a negative tension, the horse is stiff in the back. The horse is not using the back as a bridge between hind leg and front legs. And the movements are stiff and not with a good elasticity. Therefore, it is very, very important to have the second point of the scale of training in a good way under control, which means horse has to be supple, horse has to be relaxed, horse has to be, at the end of the day, in front of the rider at his or at her driving aid. This is very close connected to the rhythm and the regularity of the gait. So therefore, first rhythm, then suppleness. And then the third point, which is quite important, and this has to be fulfilled in a good way as well before we think about collection, is that the horse has a good contact, a good connection. And the connection is not just the part of the horse when we are talking about what is between the rider's hands and the horse's mouth, that's the rein. Okay, and the part which is in front of the rider is just the neck. For me, very, very important is that we have to think when we talk about connection, that we think and that we watch our horses that from behind. The contact, the connection is which we see in front of the rider. That's the result of the engagement, the activity, the swinging from behind with the hind legs. So this is very important that the person who is watching a horse, looking maybe from the judge's point of view, looking from the trainers and coaches' point of view, that these people have the feeling that the horse is using the whole back, that the horse is swinging from behind through the whole body into the horse's mouth. And the result is, at the end of the day, the contact between the rider's hands and the horse's mouth. And very important is that there is a stretching situation, that all muscles of the horse are well stretched in the direction of the horse's bit. When this happens, then the horse will have as a result a tongue which is under the bit, and the mouth is quiet and active at the same time. And therefore, when I'm looking from the body language's point of view, and in the beginning I was talking about the body language of the rider, when I'm watching the body language of the horse, looking from the judges and coaches' point of view, the mouth, which is a very important part when I'm looking from the connections point of view, is very much the mirror of good or bad riding. And when the mouth is active but quiet at the same time and closed, not wide open, what we see quite often when we have stallions or when we have thoroughbred horses or badly trained horses, then the mouth is open, the tongue is out, or the tongue is up, and the tongue has to be very in a nice way under the bit. And when we have this and can see this or realize this when we are watching a horse, then we are sure that a happy mouth is the result of a happy horse. And a happy horse is happy in the situation when there is a good stretching situation, seeking the bit and using all muscles in the way of stretching the body. And then after this 1, 2, 3 points of the scale of training, we have the impulsion. And the impulsion is very important, looking from the collection, from the point, from the 6th point, the last point, the very last point of the scale of training, because collection is never ever possible without having impulsion. So therefore, when I have the goal to collect my horse at the end of the day, it is very important that I have a special focus on the impulsion. And the more, in a positive way, active the horse is, the more the horse is swinging over the back, the better the collection will be at the end of the day. So without impulsion, collection is totally impossible to get. And when I just jump to collection, collection is nothing which means to slow down the gaits. No, it is important that you have enough energy. And when I can think into this direction one step more, I would say when you have collection, you have to have the feeling that you are riding with a lot of impulsion, more impulsion than without collection. So therefore, the 4th part of the scale of training, the impulsion is very important to get when you want to have, at the end of the day, a high level of collection in a positive way. Not negative collection, which means, slow down, slow down, slow down. Positive collection means activity from behind, swinging over the back, having good impulsion. And this, therefore, is the 5th point of the scale of training, gets, from my point of view, a special explanation mark. And then we have the last point before the collection, which is the 5th part, which is straightness. We had it discussed a couple of days ago when we had our last podcast. Therefore, I don't think that I have to explain it very intensively. But maybe the people who listen our podcast should hear into this podcast when we're explaining it. I just want to say one sentence. Only when the horse is straight, it's possible to realize, to get a good and serious collection. If the horse is crooked, you never will get a proper collection. And I had explained last time why it is and how we have to correct it to get a straight horse.
Wow, that was a really good summary and going through and about how important, the rest of the scale training is to get to collection. Just want to confirm too, you said that the horse can collect in walk, trot and canter, so collected walk, collected trot and collected canter. How's that different? How are the collected paces different to say the working trot and canter or the medium walk?
Yeah, although the gaits are shorter. Mm-hmm. This is one point, but many people think that's the main point. For me, the main point is that this was what I just said, that I put an explanation mark behind the word impulsion. Important is that you have, at the end of the day, nearly a higher level of impulsion when you are starting to collect your horse, and therefore you need a good moment of suspension. Without this, it's not possible to get a good, positive, serious level of collection. So therefore, it is very close connected, impulsion and collection. And when I talk about it, we have to say we have the impulsion only in trot and canter, because in trot and canter, we have a moment of suspension. In walk, we have not a moment of suspension. And therefore, in the walk, when we have a collected walk, we have a walk which is more active than the walk in the medium walk and the extended walk. But the steps are shorter. If possible, no overtracking with the hind legs, and shorter the front legs coming out of the shoulder. That's in the walk. And in the trot, it's similar, that the hind legs are coming not as much not so much over trekking, but more carrying the weight with the hind legs, more sitting. And someone is explaining it. It's a little bit the movement of a duck, small animal. To be honest, I don't like it to explain it this way, but someone said it when maybe it's quite good for the people who listen to our podcast to realize in which direction we have to think. My understanding is more collection is more to give a horse a good swinging feeling in trot and canter, swinging and jumping feeling. The jumps are a little bit shorter than in the working canter, medium canter, and especially in the extended canter, but active. And what I did say in the beginning when you had asked me explain the scale of training, I said very important is that the horses have a clear 3-beat rhythm in canter, 2-beat in trot and 4-beat in walk. And this is very important when we are looking from the collections point of view, that we have this regularity, this clear rhythm, and especially in canter often when we start to collect our horses, the horses don't have a clear 3-beat rhythm in canter. They come close to 4-beat rhythm, or sometimes they are in 4-beat rhythm, like voltige horses. When they do voltige at the longing line, often at the end they do a 4-beat rhythm. Therefore, many riders don't realize that they have to maintain a clear 3-beat rhythm when they are collecting their horses in canter. And that's very important, that the horses are sitting more with the hind legs, carrying more weight with the hind legs, but still jumping. And the jump is a little bit shorter, but still with a clear moment of suspension. And it's similar what I just did explain with the gait, with the pace canter, has to be similar with the trot as well.
Is there anything else, and I go back to the people who might mention, oh yeah, my horse collects because he tucks his nose in. He might be, just avoiding the contact with the bit, but that's not collection. So, if we look at, is it the overall picture, or should we be looking hindquarters, back, head and neck? I know it's a bridge between the back and the hind legs and the front legs. Is there anything else that we, so that if we're looking at horses, we can say, I see, that horse is collected. What else can you say that we should be looking for here?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. First of all, I have to see the whole picture and not just looking, how the legs are moving. Like many people look, are the hind legs, as an example, are the hind legs over tracking in the walk? When we look to this collected in walk, or yes or not. And I think we have in walk, trot, and canter to watch the whole body language and the whole body language always, but to look a little bit. I hope this is a good explanation. A little bit from the physics point of view, and you have to have the feeling that the horse is shorter. When you are riding a younger horse, it's longer, and the more the horse is collected, the more short the horse will be. And in the beginning, the poll is maybe more deep, and maybe the neck is, if everything is well done, is well stretched, but a little bit in the direction forward down. But when you are starting the collection, you start to bring the hind legs more under. And in the way you bring the hind legs more under, the front is growing, so that the rider in the saddle has a feeling he has more in front of the saddle and less behind the saddle. That's the feeling, and that the horse is growing, and the horse which is it's middle size will give you the feeling, it's quite a tall horse. So the horse is growing in the front when you do everything in the right way, looking from the physics point of view. That's one point. And the other point is, which is for me very, very important, and this is an explanation which the former national coach had explained, and I think the explanation is very good. And he said, when you have collection, looking from the rider's point of view, you have to have the feeling, I'm sitting and trot and walk on a horse. Trot and walk, the trot and canter, which is in extension in trot and canter. So that means when you want to collect your horse, and this is looking from the rider's point of view, and that's looking from the judges and trainers, coaches' point of view, that you have the feeling that there comes more energy into the horse. It is the opposite to riding slow. No, to bring more energy into the horse. And this is what we, at the end of the day, explain as collection. More energy, more swinging, more using the whole body. And at the end of the day, the feeling of getting a longer moment of suspension, this is a feeling which you should have as a rider when you are starting with good collection or when you produce collection. That's the vision you should have, and that's the feeling which you should have to produce when you are collecting your horse. And this is very good from the spectator's point of view, to watch a horse which is using the body with a long moment of suspension, with a good uphill tendency, pull highest point. Everything is in the uphill tendency, has an uphill tendency, and the rider is able to ride very, very soft with his hands. And when he or she is using the driving aids, the person who looks to this horse has a feeling, everything starts from behind with good activity. And that's exactly the point, which is, I would say that's collection.
Christoph, I love your explanations. I love the way that you can just feel what's happening as you explain it. But if I'm a rider and I've only been riding for a short time, I've had a few lessons, I'm really enjoying it. I've done a little bit of work, I've done walk and trot, I'm sort of just maybe starting to do a bit of canter, but, trying to hang on to the horse's mane at the same time. There's no good me going on to my instructor's FEI horse to feel this collection if I'm not ready. What's the prerequisites for the rider before they can really feel the collected paces? So what should the rider be looking for in themselves to get to the stage where they can feel collection and be able to ride someone's FEI horse?
First of all, I have to say, and I hope you will be not unhappy, that when I'm saying not all FEI horses are well collected.
Yes, okay.
Having an FEI horse, that maybe means the horse is able to do pirouettes and is doing flying changes at every third and fourth stride, also has a PSG level or I1 level, then we are talking about an FEI horse. But many FEI horses and other horses which have this level, they are not properly collected. Sometimes we have horses which are not able to do all these special exercises like pirouettes, half passes, and flying changes, but they are lovely collected. And therefore, when I talk about it, I say we don't need horses which knows the tricks to get the feeling for collection. We need horses which are well trained in walk and especially trot and canter, who are swinging, so that the rider is sitting on a horse which has an elasticity in the back and a good activity from behind. This is for me very, very important, because this is the spirit of collection and not riding special exercises. So therefore, to get the right feeling, this is important. And the rider needs, before he is able to sit in the saddle of a horse like this, he has to be supple in the saddle, and he has to have a good balance in the saddle, and he has to be able to produce in a positive way a horse with a long neck. He has to be able to ride a horse in front of the driving aids, so that he has a feeling, okay, when I use my driving aids, something happens. When he or she has this feeling, then the person is ready to do the next step. And then it's amazing when he or she will get a schoolmaster horse. And I just want to point out and want to underline, not important is schoolmaster horse which knows a lot of tricks. Important is to find a horse which is properly collected, swinging back, activity from behind, and a good uphill tendency with a good self-carriage and very soft in the mouth.
Yeah. So I think the message there is it's not the tricks. It's a horse that shows collection because they've been trained through the scale of training. Is there anything else that the horse needs to do? You know, we talk about the scale of training. If we follow that to the letter, anything else you'd like to say before the horse is ready to start working towards collection? Like at what level? Because you said that it was a little bit like a rainbow. We don't just wait until we're, ready and then say, right, now we're going to get the horse straight. At what level do we start to look at working, or even some pre-exercises before collection?
Yeah. Now, first of all, I have to say, it's not the most important part how old the horse is. It depends a little bit how well the horse is trained and how much the horse is talented and how good the rider is, how sensitive the rider is. So that's the very first part. But I think important is regularity, important is suppleness, important is seeking the bit, important is swinging, and important is that the horse is straight. Although when you have this under control, and therefore it's good to watch your horse from the side so that you see the silhouette, and that you watch the horse from the back and from the front. From the back and from the front to be sure that the horse is straight. And when you see the silhouette, then you see is the horse regular and is the horse seeking the bit. And if the horse has an open throat latch, and is there a steady and soft contact to the mouth. Although when this is there, then everything is ready. Looking from this point of view, or from the spectator's point of view, and the rider has to have the feeling that whenever he's doing something, there has to be a reaction, and I underline the next word, immediately. Also not a reaction in the second moment, no. It has to be a reaction immediately. And this is what I think which is important when you are starting with collection. Otherwise, it will be too early. And then when you then start with collection, then it's not going in a positive way forward. It's going in a negative way backwards. And at the end, you will have a horse which has maybe had lovely paces as a youngster. And when you try to collect the horse, which is not ready for collection, then you lose a good quality of the gaits. And then at the end of the day, you will have an average horse looking from the qualities point of view. And in the beginning, maybe you had a lovely, lovely horse with a lot of potential. But if you ask for collection too early in the wrong way, then you are, and when I say killing the horse, that is maybe not the right word, but into the direction of killing the horse.
That was one of my questions actually about, what happens if we ask for collection too soon.
Yeah.
Just to do with, and not specifically looking for tricks, but to improve the athletic ability in the horse. Are there specific exercises we can use to improve that athletic ability and maybe work towards collection?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, that's the key word is to write transitions. And that's all over the world. Everybody would say when you say what is the secret of collection, or how do you train and how do you improve collection, the keyword is transitions. But the second thing is what you have to have in mind, how to write transitions and how to train transitions. And if you train and write transitions while using your reins and stopping the horse with your reins and pulling at the reins, I would say stop riding transitions, forget it, just ride straight, go hacking, go into the forest and stop riding in this way. Therefore, it is very important to get the right feeling for transitions. And the first thing is what we have to realize when we are riding transitions. We have to realize that we are not stopping the horse and stop the canter when we want to trot. Because this is part of the way to collect the horse, or later on to come from trot to walk, or more later directly from canter to walk, or from canter to halt. These are movements to collect the horse. But important is what the rider has in his mind. And when he has the lowest transition, the easiest transition to ride a transition from canter to trot. You have to do it in the way that you start the trot, that you don't finish the canter, you have to start the trot. This is a feeling. You canter into the trot. And when you do this, you canter into the walk, as an example, or you canter into the halt when you come into the arena at X, halt and salute. You canter into the halt. When you have this feeling that you're doing this with driving aids, that is the secret of the way to collect horses. And this is what I suggest, that you watch the good riders in Tokyo, the Olympic riders in the eventing dressage and in the pure dressage. You will see how the riders are doing it, how they are riding transitions. They are not riding with their reins. They are riding with their driving aids without using the reins. And a good transition into the direction how to collect the horse is when in the transition you are able to give both reins. When you use your reins, this is a rider has to realize, when you use your reins, or whenever you are using the reins, you have two problems. And one problem is that you stop the hind legs coming under the center of gravity and carrying more weight. And the second thing is, when you are using your reins, you stimulate the flight instinct of the horse, and then the horse wants to move away. So, and then maybe you stop and more and stop and more and use more and more your reins, stopping the horse. So therefore, I think very important is when you are riding into the direction of collection, that you ride transitions in a proper way with the feeling, I start the trot when I'm in the canter. So that's the point. And then the second thing is what you can do to ride a big circle, and then to ride from a big circle more and more into a smaller circle, very small, and then do it again. Why is this so useful? Because in this situation, the horse has to use the hind legs very much, has to carry more and more weight. And when you do it on the right-hand side, the horse is doing it with the inside right hind leg. And when you do it on the left side, the horse has to use more and more the inside hind leg, the left hind leg. So therefore, you have to do it on both hands, right and left hand. And this is, for me, a very useful exercise, riding into the circle so that the horse starts to use more and more the hind leg. These two exercises, and we have lots more, and we can ride special exercises and movements, but these two exercises, when you are doing these two exercises, the people who listen to our podcast, when they do this in a proper way, then you are on a very good way into the direction to train your horse in the classical way, in the correct way, in collection or into collection.
Yep. The key words you said here is in the proper way. It's not just a matter of going and doing particular transitions. It's increasing the quality all the time. I keep going back, Christoph, to, just something you said earlier about a happy mouth is the result of a happy horse. And I just think, yep, that's right. That's right. And then you're talking about the riding forward into transitions and, giving the reins or softening the reins.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we need to know? I mean, you always need to know more. You could listen to this chat and go away and ride and come back and listen again next week and pick something else up and ride, for another day even, and just pick something else up. So I think there's always a lot to learn. But for this particular time, is there anything else we need to know about collection at the moment?
No, I don't think so. I think it's good not to discuss too many things in one podcast, because it's more important that everybody has now the chance to train it, to when he's a coach or trainer, or to feel it in the saddle when he or she or she and he are doing it or are trying to practice it with her or his own horse, or horses, plural. And I think that's very important. And maybe later on, when we have a new podcast, we can discuss a little bit more about the special exercises which we have when we want to produce collection, and produce and to get a higher level of collection. Therefore, we have a lot of movement, what we can do. But the beginning to start with collection, this is what I did say. And from my point of view, looking from this point of view, it's enough what we had discussed today. But there is, I'm sure you have now enough questions with someone else or with me. You have to decide to discuss more about collection in another podcast, but not today. I think
today.
That was
perfect. Yep.
Was I hope, looking very much from the scale of trainings point of view, from the gymnastic point of view, it's enough what we had discussed today. Yep. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Christoph, again, thank you very much for your time and for your expertise. We certainly appreciate it. Now, if people need to contact you direct, I know that, people sort of sometimes talk to me and say, ask Christoph this and can we talk about that? But if you do need to talk to Christoph, he's already been very generous with his time. What's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, still my phone is possible.
Yep.
Or my email address. Although I'm very good to get WhatsApp. I love it, and someone is sending me sometimes a video or so. But I can give my phone number. It is a German number +49 and then 170-8519-323. That's my phone, and via WhatsApp, it's good to come into contact with me. And then I have a mail address, which is ch at Christoph. The last two letters are P and H minus Hess HESS.info. Also I repeated ch at Christoph minus Hess.info. So this is possible as well. And then I have a homepage, and you can contact me via my homepage, Christoph-Hess.info. So these are the ways to come into contact with me. And what you are saying, I'm open to discuss more questions, specific questions from people who are listening to your podcast.
Yeah, and just if you're not sure on the minus, just go Christoph-Hess.
The dash.
So
dash.
Yeah,
sorry.
dash.
Sorry.
Because sometimes people might think
dash.
It's an underscore or something, but it's a dash.
No, dash.
Yeah.
Dash.
Yep.
Sorry, yes.
Not a problem. All right, Christoph, thank you very much for your time, and we certainly will be looking forward to the next one about the special exercise when we want to produce the higher level of collection.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Exactly.
And look forward to chatting to you again.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.